Yeah, I really, really like the Honda port. If you could put the Honda port in a 2J and then have some sort of mechanical advantage rocker
Do
or
you know
something like
anybody, Dave, that could do such a task? Have you met someone?
Oh, Jake, if you only heard what Jake talks about in private.
What about silly engines like Dodge SRT4? Have you ever seen one of those with the head off? And the piston is a factory turbocharged engine, and the
Yeah.
piston is like a quarter inch down the bore
Mm.
or more, and it's got a dome to make 8.5 to 1 compression. And I don't know if they did it that way because they just messed up and used an existing block height instead of making a
Yeah,
proper
that's what
engine.
the OEM.
Yes, but they were factory turbocharged engines with no quench. The
Yeah,
thing's a quarter inch away from the deck of the head. You
yeah,
know, and they were for their back pressure ratios, they were fairly numb to ignition timing. As long as you didn't run it lean, the
yeah,
engine would go flat from timing before it would knock itself to death.
yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, there's always a wild card, isn't there? Like
Yeah,
especially with OEM, that just you look at it and go, how, why? Yeah,
yeah. The Ford 5.4s were the same, piston down in the hole type
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. What is your ideal quench? As close as we can get the piston to the head without hitting it.
Depending on the ratio of the quench. So I know Darren and a few guys have talked about it, and another engine guy that I do work for in Queensland, they have massive quench ratios, like 45% of the chamber is quench. So at that point, they're getting too much quench, so you have to control the distance. But yeah, generally, if you're 10, 20, 30% quench, yeah. A lot of my guys I speak to, they want imprints in the combustion chamber. Yeah, they want to see it. Yeah,
Um,
100%.
when you look at a nitrous guy that has softened, did you ever see those guys that were cutting channels in the combustion chamber
Mm.
from the outside of the cylinder towards the valve area? Like they cut a trench in the combustion chamber.
Yeah, and they used to do it, the old Hemis, in between the intake and exhaust in the quench pad.
And that are they is the air is the air going so fast in the chamber at times that it becomes a heat management problem and they're trying to slow the air down?
Yeah,
Okay.
100%. And with boosted and up, especially boosted, a lot of it is with softening in nitrous engine is stopping fuel getting down there. Like RBs, they're horrendous for it, right? Getting under the quench pad and just causing detonation because that pressure and that velocity is so intense it
Yeah.
basically self ignites, right?
the
Yeah.
can I ask real quick? The angled quench pads that we're talking about earlier on the Toyota stuff, was that on a pent roof type of configuration?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Right. And what did they see?
Um, Pretty much more horsepower, faster burn. I'll send you the study. I've got the 1ZZ originally, and they compared it. I think they'll compare it to their early, probably the 3S engines. But yeah, I'll send that over to you as well. You can have a read.
That'd be fun to
Yeah, it's
try.
good. Yeah,
Hey
yeah.
Jake, in that quench, do you feel that there is ever a time where you reach a point of negative return as far as compression? Looking at the case,
Uh, in what do you mean? Too much
is there such
compression,
a
too
thing
much
as too much
quench?
quench in a four valve engine?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one. I don't think so because they don't have a hell of a lot of quench to start with. And as I said, you look at pro stock and they're, plus 40% of the chamber area is quench. And it's all about burn speed. And the other drama we obviously have is, we're limited by burn speed of the fuel, and our piston speed is just getting way out of hand. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know whether it would limit it, because with RPM, we really need faster burn speeds to try and catch that piston to hit it harder and faster, because we're really only using that, 30 or 40 degrees of from TDC down, and it's all over.
What about burn speed in relation to air inlet temperature and fuel? Like if you just strictly wanted to talk about methanol, what is the ideal inlet temperature to to have the fuel in a state where it's not just these big clumsy droplets in the cylinder?
Mm. Well, you definitely don't want to go intercooled and methanol. I found that out the wrong way. Yeah. Um, I think that 25 degrees, somewhere around there. I went right down to 16. Yeah, we want a little bit of heat, and it comes down to the manifold. And I don't know whether you've seen some of my manifolds. We actually texture the inside of the manifold to try and get a little steam layer, so a little bit of heat in the plenum.
So that's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Have
What
you?
is no? I mean, doesn't methanol have like a low temperature limit where it becomes problematic? Like scientifically, what's that
I
temperature?
think it's
Daniel?
closer to about close to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, I just brought my calculator and C to F, but below, so it's about minus 17 degrees Celsius. And I guess that's my question for Jake now is we've been playing around with some forms of cooling for methanol, understanding that, we're riding that fine line of having these extra large droplet sizes versus charge temps, and also knowing that methanol carries an oxygen molecule, and compacting more fuel just through temperature, making the fuel more dense. I was searching around
Mhm.
through some of the calculators. I didn't really see anything related to fuel temperature. But what's your take on fuel temperature and methanol, and sort of where do you draw? I know you just mentioned it was a roughly 60 degrees Fahrenheit as you needing some form of heat with methanol, but is there some trade-off if you could systematically make the droplets smaller by pressure, let's just say by field pressure? Would there be some benefit in cooling and possibly freezing the methanol?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think. Well, again, the fight is the DSM size, right? Getting that as fuel molecules small enough, and you know, hotter air has more energy. The molecules are moving around faster, so that they will shear the fuel faster in general. But yeah, I think again, I think Dave was talking about moving the injector away, getting it up near the bell mouth or something like that. Definitely, the more time we've got in the air to shear it, the better it will be, and the more cooling we'll get in that, from the methanol itself. Again, like you said, then that means more oxygen, a more dense charge in there for the same volume. And that's, Jay, anyone who's tuned will know, colder air makes more horsepower generally, right? Because as long as we can control the fuel, we're definitely going to make horsepower. So,
Yeah, I've
yeah,
spent a good amount of time rolling that around because you had guys that raced, like circle track guys would have a downstream injector and an upstream injector.
yeah.
And the downstream injector they would claim was worth power, and then your your fuel charge has less time to mix with the air, but then you offset by maybe allowing more air in the port because there's not as much fuel taking up space. With a upstream downstream system. Have you ever seen a downstream system on a small Chev?
On a small block.
Yeah,
Yeah, we did one 20 years ago.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's old school stuff, but the nozzle placement is fairly ridiculous because it's like out by the spark plugs, and they just get right in there on the back of the valve on it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, um, your sprint cars are still like that now,
Yeah,
aren't they?
yeah. Sprint cars. That's a haven for this type of thing.
Yeah, 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 yeah. But they're not, breaking any records as far as horsepower goes either. So you know what I mean? Um, they try and limit the torque. They're not. Yeah, that no disrespect, they are big horsepower engines, but they're not. That's not their goal in a way.
Okay.
Where in drag racing, it's all got to be about horsepower. Like that's what we need. We need narrow windows where a dirt car, they want to limit torque so they don't trench. And you see some of the smart guys in camshaft playing around with that with different LSAs and different durations to put the power where they need it more so than make peak power. Like, you got if you had a sprint car engine and you said to the guy, make as much horsepower as you can, put it on the track, he'd come last. It wouldn't work. So, and this is the problem even with circuit racing, the changeover with, and even to a certain extent, drag racing. I've had cars lose horsepower and go faster down the track because they're hitting the converter harder, they're making more torque. But like 2Js, smaller cylinder head, 20 CFM down, and the car goes a half a second faster, makes more horsepower per psi, but makes it all earlier. Hits the car a lot better, right?
Can I? You're Australian, so you have an RB. Like the RB's like been in your backyard this whole time.
Yeah, a long time.
And the RB and the JZ have quite a different looking cylinder head when you hook around. Quite a different looking combustion chamber. Which cylinder head do you prefer between those two engines?
Yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah, I prefer the 2J combustion chamber, but I prefer the RB port.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I see that.
yeah,
I see that.
it's a very nice design. We actually weld them up before we bought the RBs just to fix a couple of the dead spots in them. But after that, they're magic.
Dead spots is an interesting thing. Did you see the photo of that Lamborghini Performante port?
I don't think I've seen it, but I have seen them before.
Where it's got those crazy channels.
Yeah.
What do you think their angle was there?
The turbulence, yeah. Because
are they creating turbulence or avoiding turbulence?
No, they're trying to create turbulence. Yeah.
To get the air to move as it's going into the bore?
More shear stress to fight that DSM size. They want smaller droplets.
Hey Jay, you mentioned that Performante head, and then Jake actually was talking about induction stuff for ITBs earlier. I want to kind of go back to the actual trumpets. Remember we were trading those photos, Jay, like all the different shaped trumpets. Have you seen those, Jake?
I think so. Yeah.
There's like all these different angles and different types of like designs for different trumpet styles. Can you like maybe myth bust some of that, or maybe shine some light on it? Like, is that stuff actually working?
Working's a hard one. Everything works, but how well it works is the question, right? It comes back down to how much you compensate. And I get a ton of studies sent to me, with all this sort of stuff, different induction testing, and you can really see where some of the problems start, where they're testing a parallel runner to test the bell shape. The problem with that is the transition time across the bell. We're going from, still air to, depending on what their parallel airspeed is, maybe 240, 250 feet per second, really, really quickly. So straight away, that test is going to tell you need a bigger radius, right? Because we need more transition time to accelerate the air. Where now if we put a taper in it, the radius will shrink. So you've got to be really, really careful what tests you look at, and how they're going about the test, because a parallel stack is going to want far more radius than a tapered stack, right? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think I know what you're talking about. recently some guy's been posting a picture of all these bell mouths that he's tested.
Oh,
Yeah, his tests aren't valid. That's no way to test it. The other thing is, I don't know why you would ever put a swirling type of fin
Yeah.
on it. The shit wants to go in straight. It doesn't want to spin.
that's
Like
right.
if you got a spinning charge go in, what's it going to do once it hits the middle fin? Right.
You've increased the flow path length. That's not what
Right.
we want. So if we
Right.
get a spring and stretch it out, it's now twice as long. So if you're
Yeah.
corkscrewing air through a timed event, you're creating restriction.
And then
Yeah.
like the dimple stuff is also just
Yeah.
it's like it's cool marketing stuff. It doesn't work. It works in reverse. It's going to do the exact opposite of what you want. That shit.
right.
The faster the air goes, the smaller the cross sectional area is going to become because of the boundary layer is going to build up, get fat.
That's right. And the other thing, if it's the same test I seen, that was all done at 5 inches. There's a huge difference between 5 inches to 28 inches to 40 inches. Like we were getting into flowing 40 inches probably a decade ago. And what that will show you compared to, like my first bench was a 110, you know? So I was on 10 inches basically, or 5 inches if we're flying big cylinder heads. You didn't even need to put plasticine on the head. It would go within a couple of percent. You just didn't have the airspeed. We're barely 100 feet per second. There's no elasticity to air, so there's no compressibility to air under that 100 feet per second. So it's going to work like water, like a solid fluid. But as soon as you start increasing that velocity, this is why the industry standard 28 inches is 350 feet per second. So that's roughly half what we're going to see in our peak velocity in a cylinder head. So it's halfway up on the velocity curve, right? So we go from 0 to 690 feet back to 0 in one port event in 1/100th of a second, whatever our valve speed is. So the 28 inch is a arbitrary number in a way. It's equivalent to roughly 1 psi of pressure drop, but it's a number that we've all agreed on. But you'll see, like in Formula One, that they were testing the heads at 5 inches of mercury, which is like 60, I think 60 inches or something like that. And a lot of the guys like that I help out here, they're testing at 40 inches now because they're seeing things that you won't see at 28, and you definitely won't see it at 5 inches, right? Because you just don't have the airspeed, right? There's no inertia. Like, it's like going at the racetrack. I'm not going to know how well my suspension is going through a 200-kilometer corner at 50 kilometers an hour. There's no load, there's no G-force, there's no nothing. Air is exactly like us, and it needs to abide by those laws of physics. So the faster it goes, the more separation we'll see. Like you said, the more boundary swell we'll get on that short turn, the more separation. And you'll see ahead that, especially when I went from some of the stuff I'd done at 10 inches to 28 inches, that was flowing to 700. Now I get to 600, and I'm hearing separation on the bench. That head's gone bad, right? So, yeah. But yeah, I seen that test, and it wasn't even done at the right pressures, and that's the next problem, right?
Yeah, they're Volkswagen guys.
Do you have videos on your channel of listening to a flow bench go wrong?
No, I did years ago, but I never posted it. So that's another reason why me and my son were actually talking about doing a build series with a bench and actually going through all this, because you know what it's like. You learn something, you move on, you think everyone knows it, we're good. But then, 10, 20 years later, people are still, going back to these simpler things that we put to bed years ago, like dimple port, like,
Oh yeah, the dimple port thing has come. I remember when it came out the first time.
every 10 years it comes up.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't help that. Like we got a Rottler 69 machine here. It doesn't help that it's part of their program.
That's the program, that's right. Exactly.
It's like it'll add dimples to everything.
That's
It's
a
a good
cool
upsell.
joke.
Yeah.
The problem with the Rottler program is it adds dimples to all surfaces when you might want to play with it, in certain select areas, but
Yeah,
not the
exactly.
board.
Yeah, it can be a good band-aid, that's right. Definitely. So it's some of the class racing I got involved with. We were putting it on pistons because it was just washing that area of the piston, right? So we dimple the edge of the piston, and you pull it back apart and look at the burn pattern tells you everything, right?
Yeah,
So-
they're actually doing that on diesel pistons now.
Yeah,
They're
that's right. I've seen
the
that.
piston tops,
Yeah.
and it supposedly has good gains.
Yeah.
But why wouldn't the OEMs do it then?
They did. GM did it back GM Performance did it in the 90s, I think, with one of their engines. They actually done a dimpled piston, and they seen better fuel economy and everything.
Huh.
So if I find that, I'll dig it out. So I tripped over that probably 15 years ago, and it's one of those things that you should have saved and kept. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think they had it at SEMA way back when. Yeah.
You've looked at it over a pretty long lens of time, which is nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of enthusiasts come in, they're only got a 5-year snapshot, 10-year snapshot.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you look at it over a 30-year snapshot, things start to come in focus a little better.
Yeah. Definitely. And the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
That is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true.
Definitely.
Jake, do you have a favorite engine?
Oh, I try not to have favorites, but I really like the 2J. Yeah, I like that. I really I like the Coyote. I like some pushrod stuff. Yeah, I like so many engines. That's the problem, I think. But yeah, when it comes to the 6-cylinder, the 2J, yeah, it's got a special spot for me.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, really like them. They reminded me of, because I grew up building both RBs and 2Js, and they just reminded me of an RB on steroids.
Yeah.
Bigger bolts, bigger this, bigger just Toyota engineered. I love Toyota stuff in general.
No, it's always been entertaining for me to listen to people compare the two engines because their base environment and base duty was different. Toyota almost knew that the Americans were going to do dumb stuff with those engines, and Nissan had that circuit. They had their circuit engine sorted to be their circuit engine.
Yeah, no, really like them.
Huh. I wish it had a better cylinder head. I look at the Honda Airflow, like how terrible a naturally aspirated 2JZ runs.
Yeah.
I did one years ago just because I was curious, and it was real bad. It was a lot of effort to make like 280 wheel.
Yeah.
And well, not a lot of effort, but a lot of money.
Yeah.
And you look at a K and how it just gives it up, and you're just
exactly.
same, 86 millimeter bore engine, and the power capacity is just nutty. Yeah.
Well, again, with that additional rocker ratio, and then the port design in the Honda is just brilliant. Like I helped a company up in Queensland with a billet RB, and we basically tried to put as much of the Honda wisdom into this cylinder head, even down to the chamber. We went full clover leaf chamber and fixed a lot of the problems. We shrank, obviously, the quench pad because it's the big problem in the RBs. But yeah, I really like the Honda port. If you could put the Honda port in a 2J and then have some sort of mechanical advantage rocker.
Do you know anybody, Dave, that could do such a task? Have you met someone?
Oh, Jake, if you only heard what Jay talks about in private.
It's all I want, man. Look, I'm 47 years old. I've been doing this stupid thing with my life the whole time. I just want a decent cylinder head on a JZ.
The statement that Jake just made, Jay's like in my ear every day about. It should be done. It should. I think it should be done.
Yeah.
And I know somebody.
You got a guy
it's
for
funny,
that.
we actually had a lot of success with the NA port because they were a bit taller, right? So in the early days, when we were drag racing, I helping a few guys out. We started cracking 8s and everything. We were doing it with the NA heads,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The NA head has the straight exhaust port is nice.
Yeah.
The port volume of the intake side always gives me like a little just questions. I don't know, and I don't want to claim to know. I just have questions. But I've used the NA head at 1,000 horsepower stuff, and it doesn't seem to run.
They're beautiful.
Different. Yeah, it's fine.
What's the bore on a 2J?
86.
86. What's the max? What's the bore center?
You run out of head gasket pretty. I never went above 87 millimeter.
Max bore.
Yeah, max bore.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Then K valves would fit.
yeah, you got to have a head gasket system that'll deal with what people are going to do to it. So you got to have some material between the bores.
Yeah,
Man, if they just ran it at 86 with good heads, it's going to be in a different zip code of performance.
Yeah. No, I would I'd like that party. I'd show up to that one.
I want to go to that party.
Dude, I'm gonna get in the liner in a few weeks, and I gotta face off with trying to go real fast. It's the best. I'm the most prepared I am, and I just I dynoed the car this past weekend, and it's there. So I just have to.
What do you think you can hit? What do you think you can hit?
I have enough power to go over 400. So if I don't blow the thing up,